this right here, we're going to be teaching about the nervous system. And
more specifically, a nerve cell.
The nervous system controls and coordinates functions throughout the body. And this is a nerve cell, as Reza said.
These here are the dendrites, which receive the impulses from the external environment, which travel to the cell body, and then they run down the axons. The axons that you can see are surrounded by the myelin sheath, and occasionally in the membrane there are holes called nodes where the impulses can jump from one node to the other. And if the impulses decide not to travel using that method, they reach the end of the axon into what we call the synapse, and then... No!
Nervous system transmit impulses from sense organs to the central nervous system and back to muscles or glands. When you step on a tack, sensory receptors stimulate sensory neuron, which relays the signal to an interneuron within the spinal cord. The signal is then sent to a motor neuron, which in turn stimulates a muscle in your leg to lift your leg. The motor division transmit impulses from the central nervous system to the muscles or glands. The brain is essential.
You can see here, the sensory receptors are in the foot, but we need to elaborate on the receptor. There are three parts to the nervous system. There is a receptor, which receives the feedback from the external environment. It travels to the processing center, also known as the control center, which processes the impulse from the receptor and generates a response and sends that impulse to the effector, which then generates feedback inhibition or negative feedback to counter the feedback received from the external environment, thus generating more feedback for the receptor, and the cycle continues. This is a neuromuscular junction, which is the point of contact between a motor neuron and a skeletal muscle cell. Vesicles or pockets in the axon terminals of the motor neuron release a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine molecules diffuse across the synapse.
The thick filaments contain a protein called myosin. The thin filaments are made up mainly of a protein called actin. The filaments are arranged along the muscle fiber in units called sarcomeres, which are separated from each other by regions called Z-lines. During muscle contraction, the actin filaments slide over myosin filaments, decreasing the distance between the Z-lines. Yes, music is groovy.
Be demonstrating a flinching response, which is involuntary, meaning it is a reflex, and briefly it's when the eyes, the optic nerve, receives image of something large coming into the body at a high speed, and so the response generated is a flinch to protect your face, which is going to be demonstrated right now. See that?
Hey, you know what's a good way to waste time for the project? No.